Welcome. My name is Carl Johann Schroeder, and this is my meetup called Inner Selves for Outer Mastery, where we work on mastering the inner world, which is your personal universe. Today we're going to talk about the multiverse and what it means to be a spiritual human. You need to be a spiritual human in order to find your own place in the multiverse. The multiverse is really just referring to the fact that everybody is their own universe. People talk a lot these days about changing timelines. If you do a healing the inner child meditation, you can change the past. What happens is that all time is simultaneous. And these are some big concepts that totally change the way you look at everything. But it's time. We need this because the world is in such conflict. Everybody has their own idea of what needs to happen. And you just can't get into fights anymore. You can't be lost in the conflict anymore. You've got to find the path that's right for you. And then the people who are right for you on that path will also be on their own path parallel to you. That's what happens. That a lot of, from the human perspective, you're looking for the solutions. You're looking for the wonderful things you want in life. That is perfectly healthy. That is perfectly normal. The thing is, from the human perspective, you don't know all the answers. You can't see around the corners. You have no idea how it's going to feel when you try something. All you know is that from your current position, there's a whole lot of negative energy. Negativity is about invalidating you, inner critics, outer critics. There's a lot of that going on in the earth. There's a reason for that. It doesn't mean the earth is a bad place. That's what a lot of people end up concluding, is that somehow earth is a bad place. And if they like the idea of a multiverse, they think it's in terms of escaping, getting out of here. There is no escaping, but you're not trapped. What happens is you got to learn to shift your entire focus onto you, what's right for you, your own path. And you will find solutions. You will be guided by your higher self, your future self, guided by the greater you who does live behind and beyond this reality. You have your own way to be. So this is what we're exploring today, and this is my passion in life. I love to learn about how good the universe really is and how much humans have simply adopted a lot of false beliefs that get them into this logjam, this conflict, this fight over whose rules do we follow for a better world. That's where we're at today, and that is why the Earth is the way it is. Earth is actually a really wonderful planet. It supports many ecosystems in nature, which gives you a hint. You see, nature is giving you the guiding principles, the precedents, the examples of how good things can work together. So if you look on Earth, there are so many different ecosystems, and there's life like just about everywhere you look. Actual physical life. One of the things you learn on the spiritual path is that life isn't just physical. There are consciousnesses, there are other beings that you connect with, and you conceive of this in different ways. We tend to think, because we're taught that, hey, the current physical world, this is the real place, this is the only solid place. So if I'm connecting with any other beings, well, they must somehow be spirits, maybe they're dead ancestors, just some sort of sense of that this is the solid real place, and there's some explanation how I can be connecting with someone else. That's not true, actually. What's happening is that every consciousness is in its own reality, which feels perfectly solid and real to them. The higher consciousnesses, so-called higher consciousness, basically the consciousness that follow love. What you want to do in life is learn how to love everything, how to have a positive attitude toward everything you encounter. You don't want to think in terms of, well, there's only one reality, we have to fight over it. Or the other extreme would be like, hey, there are other realities and I just got to get out of this bad place. No, you are always in your own reality. So you need to have understandings so that you can believe that working with your life as it is right now will get you somewhere. So one of the biggest problems in the world today is people are just holding on to old limited belief systems that just don't allow for them to have the empowerment they need to follow their own dream, to discover their own relationship with the source, with the greater multiverse. let me go into a little bit about how this works here. The universe, I kind of flip back and forth between universe and multiverse, but what I mean is when I say universe, I mean your universe. Every consciousness is its own perspective of the entire universe looking to experience itself. That is the only goal of life. Life is everywhere. The entire universe is tuned to life. The entire non-physical, consciousness-based universe is tuned to life. Life is about experiencing more of existence. You exist, and you are a form of life, and you have your own perspective on what that feels like. That is the only goal, really, of life. It is already granted, it is already given that you have eternal life. So many people are struggling and suffering and working hard to have a chance at surviving, to have a chance at even existing. People who have really cruel inner voices, which all come from the negative beliefs, but we'll get into that. The cruel inner voices that are completely invalidating, and you know what that feels like. These really vulnerable moments where in your human self, in your pursuit of pleasure, yes, the human being is built to enjoy life, is built for pleasure. Have no shame that you basically just want to have a good life. We are taught all kinds of belief systems, spiritual, religious, philosophical, whatever, but we're taught like self-sacrifice is so wonderful. You've got to not think of yourself. You've got to think of others. You got to do more, work harder, until you drop to try to help everyone else have a good life. Well, what kind of sense does that make? If everybody's suffering to sacrifice for everybody else to have a good life, who's having a good life at everyone else's expense? Well, the answer becomes those people who don't give a damn. There are certain narcissists, certain dictators who rise to power because basically there's a field of understanding of most people in the world are trying to be nice, trying to be good. And they follow these belief systems that say you need to sacrifice and work hard for the greater vision, all this kind of stuff. So then somebody comes along who's a complete narcissist who doesn't care about anyone, just is basically living to maximize some simple pleasures like I want the most money, I want the most power, I want the most followers, whatever. So these are people who basically, and this is true, this is what you could call selling your soul to the devil. There are people who they get to a place of not caring about anyone else because they don't care about themselves. I find this to be very instructive, that actually, so first of all, let's start with, in the Bible, it talks about, in that last Revelation chapter, which is full of really just sort of Hollywood action movie, horror movie, monster movie stuff that isn't true. But it does have some, well, let's say it doesn't have to be true. That's a better way to put that. The point is that anything can be staged. Anything can become true if you live that lifestyle. But that doesn't mean it's the best way to live. And it doesn't mean that it's a consistent, sustainable system. So in the Bible, it talks about Lucifer as being this fallen angel who he was an angel, he was working with God, and that's the basic idea, is that there is this divine principle, there is this source of life. If you work with it, you will have eternal life. But Lucifer decided he wanted to be God. He wanted to, I don't want to work under anyone else. I want to be the highest authority. Whatever I say happens. So whenever you get into that kind of position, you may have good intentions. There are a lot of people who have good intentions, but then they become a little monster, a little dictator, because they think they know the best things that should happen. We need to have a humility in life that, yes, from the human point of view, you want certain things to happen, but only because from past experience, from your own future imaginings, you think about, like, this would be a good thing to happen. This would be a good thing to happen for me. Surely it would be a good thing to happen for other people. So basically, we're seeing a world full of people who are trying to force their idea of what should happen onto other people. And that is the basic mistake of life. There are two basic directions of life. The positive belief systems, that's positive true beliefs, are the ones that say life is good, life is wonderful. It will support whatever lifestyle you want to stage and experiment with. you try different lifestyles, you will live the consequences. You will discover which lifestyles are sustainable, which lifestyles go in a more healthy direction, and which lifestyles go in an unhealthy direction. So this is the fundamental background, unconditional love of the universe. This is really interesting that, you hear about people who have near-death experiences, right? They may or may not have believed in any kind of afterlife, but then they die temporarily, medically, truly they die, and wow, this is amazing. I'm like floating around. I'm out of my body. I can watch the operating room or whatever. I'm still alive. Yeah, you still exist. You will always exist. And then they go into, some tunnel of light, and they meet some guides and some ancestors, and they're basically shown how good the universe really is. But they have it in this idea of it's an afterlife. It's some other place. It's not Earth. I had to get out of Earth to get to this beautiful place. And everybody who touches into the afterlife, which is really not another place, it's the energy world. It's the spiritual way of experiencing existence. But you tap into it by near-death experience or by your own, joyful, unity, mystical, spiritual experiences. We've all had them, right? Those peak moments in life. You may or may not associate a particular activity. Like, oh, I was having a good time because I was on a vacation. I was in such a flow with nature, or I was in this beautiful relationship. But at these moments of flow, as a physical human being, you may attach that really wonderful energy to some particular experience. Good, that's fine. That's part of what it means to be an incarnated being, a human being. Figure out how the best energies can be experienced in a certain situation. The best energies are this unlimited, unconditional love of the source of the greater universe, of the source of all life. And then the human experience is a focus of like, I want to experience how good life can be in this particular scene. So that's a clue right there that you're looking for ways to experience how good life is wherever you find yourself. There is a best way to experience whatever situation you're in. There is a way to make the best of it. That doesn't mean that you stay with an abusive situation. It may mean very quickly I decide like, okay, this situation really sucks. These people are out to get me. They really are. I'm not just paranoid. It's a toxic relationship, whatever. But the positive use of that, the positive way of seeing that is to understand how does the universe work? How does a good universe support this sucky situation? You learn a little more life lessons. You learn a little more about how life works. What kind of choices were behind the situations that you find yourself in. And when you understand how good the universe really is, and when you understand what kind of choices, what kind of beliefs lead to staging any particular lifestyle, you have compassion for people. Because you understand that, my God, no matter how awful the situation, no matter how much these people are suffering, or how much these people may be in total denial of their suffering, just being a little monster, whatever, a little dictator, a Lucifer type, we'll get back to that. But you have compassion. You understand, look, folks, life could be really good. And then a lot of people go into like rescuer, right? A lot of people go into like, how can I help make people wake up, and then you find that won't work. That's actually what makes you insecure. It's part of the false negative belief systems that say, oh yeah, come over here to this bad place and rescue these people, fix this place. Well, you may have good intentions, but you don't change other people's minds. You change your mind, and then you will meet more and more people who agree with you. It's fine to live in your own bubble, to live with the people who are like-minded souls, kindred souls. That's what actually you're looking for in life. I know I'm following some tangents here. I will bring it back together. But this is what we're going to talk about today in terms of you can have the most wonderful intentions, the most wonderful visions for how good life can be. But if you buy into the belief systems that say there's only one reality and everybody needs to agree, you will become a little monster, a little dictator. Some people go far down that path of domination. That's what it's called, when you try to force your will on other people. Even if you think it's a really good idea. Hey, everybody, we'll all be happy. We'll have a lawful society. We'll help everyone we'll support diversity will help everyone to find their own way to thrive. Well, there are people who don't want diversity. There are people who want, like, to basically kill everyone who's not like them. It's like, well, we can't tolerate that, right? Well, there needs to be a higher level of spiritual understanding to tolerate that. After World War II, and I mean, everything in life has a lesson, but some lessons are really basic. You didn't have to go to that length to learn that life lesson. So a big lesson of World War II, of the Holocaust, just horrific, just premeditated, deliberate killing of people, genocide. And like the Nazis, the fascists, taking pride in making systems to exterminate people because they have some false idea of, like, if we just have the right one kind of person, then the world will be a great place. Well, that's a characteristic of false negative beliefs. The true positive beliefs say, look, everything in the universe fits together some way. You can have a positive experience from every situation. You just may not stay in that situation. You may realize, like, hey, everybody, I have compassion for you. Life could be better. You don't seem to understand how the universe works. I've learned more how the universe works. I wish you well. I have compassion for you. If anybody wants to watch me, I'm leaving, okay? I'm exiting this toxic, codependent situation. Anybody who's looking for a way out, follow me this way. That's what the idea, that's the approach to helping other people, is that you focus on helping yourself and then share the information. You notice that in the negative direction, it's all about, yeah, people may have some original idea of, like, this is how to make the world a better place. But they then quickly go with beliefs that are false, that everything doesn't fit together. And some things are just so bad they shouldn't even exist. That's not true. So that's where you get a basic lesson of World War II, of the Holocaust, people taking pride in getting rid of their enemies. There's no end to it. Every time that there is some kind of dictatorship, it ends badly. Anytime there's some kind of people who are obsessed with, like, we got to get rid of all the wrong things, all the wrong people, it ends badly. You learn the lesson. You realize, like, oh my God, basic lesson of the Holocaust, that needs to not happen. We need to go the other direction. Instead of trying to, like, define one kind of right person and everybody else is wrong and get rid of them. And you may be a nice person. You're not trying to kill people to get rid of them, but you may still be trying. You see a lot of nice spiritual people. They're still trying to get rid of the bad people. They're just going to, like, hey, I'm going to convince you. I'm going to debate you. I'm going to show you the evidence. I'm going to explain to you. There are people who don't want to hear it. No matter what you say, they still want to have that negative direction. Why? Because they're still building up their own experience of the good universe to stage something really awful and feel how wrong that is for them. Sooner or later, everyone will wake up to what kind of negative situation they were building, some kind of horrific movie, just a reality experience, and they will wake up and realize, like, this doesn't work. I don't like this. This can't be the way to go. How do I turn around? How do I get back to a living, loving universe where all parts are meant to fit together? So yeah, everything happens for a reason. And there is a life lesson to be learned in every situation, a life lesson about how good the universe is, how it really works. But the lessons could be so freaking basic. You learned them long ago. You learned that love has got to be the answer. I don't know all the details of how love is the answer. I don't know how to love every situation in my life. I don't know how to not become codependent, how to make a good exit with compassion and understand and all this. I may not understand that stuff. I may still become dominating, like all these spiritual people who, like, if we just make all the bad people understand that peace is the answer. Well, that's domination. You don't force your will on others. But you're here because you know love is the answer, and you're working out the details of how is love the answer, especially for you from your position. You meet lots of wonderful people on the spiritual path who get really excited about some answer, and you're like, well, I don't want to invalidate you. Maybe that works for you, but honestly, I tried that and it doesn't work for me. So even among the spiritual people who can all agree that we want a happy, healthy earth, and we should all work together to help heal the earth and receive whatever higher guidance, whatever higher assistance we need to heal the planet, even if you agree, you're still going to meet lots of people who have different ways of practicing love. And some of them may get kind of pushy. They may get kind of threatened to meet that you have a different good answer and from them, and they may try to tell you, like, you need to do it this way and you're wrong. But you can both, as spiritual people, start to feel like, that's going the wrong direction. Okay, I don't want to become dominating. I don't want to go the direction of negative beliefs that say some things just are wrong, shouldn't exist. No, everybody needs to exist. So we are learning, as the spiritual people who want a happy, healthy earth, we are learning how to coexist with all kinds of variations of positive beliefs, but also to definitely identify the negative beliefs. There are negative beliefs that are so basic, that are so antithetical to life, that are just, yes, you can stage a situation, just like you can create any movie, you can hire the actors, if you've got the resources, you can make anything look like it's true. But then the consequences will tell you if it's really true. So in terms of movies, if you like to make movies, you see, like, there's a movie for every taste. There are movies that do illegal things, but try to work within the law. But you can stage movies that are horror movies, romance movies, action movies, adventure movies, a mix of a lot of things. Documentaries, hopeful movies, spiritual movies, every kind of movie, right? And what's interesting is there are different audiences for every movie. So if you do believe in the negative beliefs that say, look, there needs to be, everybody agrees, you need to have one kind of person, you may be the kind of person who, you may find yourself invalidating things. That's a horrible movie. That shouldn't exist. People who like that kind of movie, what is wrong with you? You need to learn to let that go. In the multiverse, this is the concept of a multiverse, where you need to get back to a basic life lesson. Every consciousness has its own perspective on everything. Every being has its own way of succeeding. And every being will find their way through the realities that they are staging to discover who they really are. And yes, who everyone really is this higher, amazing, beautiful, divine being that is about the love of the universe. But I was saying this earlier, the idea of the near-death experiencers, when you tap into the love of the universe, oh my God, it is so amazing. I had a big spiritual awakening in my early 20s after going through college. So, like, I was an idealistic child with a couple of parents who had their traumas. They had their trauma history, but they were going to protect their kids, me and my sister, to have a nice life. So we had a nice upbringing in a little small town in New York State. But you get the sense that, like, the world is scary out there. You meet people who are more or less dysfunctional. And so then through college, in the teenage years, well, that's when you really find out about how the rest of the world is. So whether or not you had a decent childhood, and it's very sad. A lot of people have had really traumatized childhoods from an early start. They're like, horrible things can happen and happen to me. Sooner or later, though, even if you had a protected childhood like me, when you go through college and when your mind expands, when your emotions expand, when your body gets stronger, you get out there, you go, I'm going to have my own life. I'm going to get my own job and my own friends and all this. You're going to discover Earth is a place that has some really toxic negative belief systems. And that is when you need to start believing in yourself more and not get sucked into those toxic negative belief systems. But you're going to make some mistakes. It's okay. So for myself, I got really cynical through college, just for some comparison. I really pursued pleasure. I really pursued happy times. I actually was really into intimacy and bonding. So I wasn't so much somebody who pursued a lot of sex, but I definitely pursued the parties, the drugs, the escapism, the fantasies. Just me versus the world. My friends and I versus the system. Sort of rebels without a cause, and that became very exhausting. So by the end of college, I was very cynical. I was a chain smoker. I said, "What the hell? I guess I'm killing myself." I tried to be honest, but that I had compulsive habits that were unhealthy. And then when I graduated, I kind of mustered my optimism and said, okay, now is a fresh opportunity. Maybe I can find a nice job. So I graduated in computers, and I looked for a computer job. I found one that was a music software company run by a bunch of ex-hippies. They were making early music software. So back in the 80s. And so that was cool. And I get that job. But I'm really scared of the world. This was back in the late 80s. And it's like, yeah, this is history, right? This is dating myself. But, there were world crises back then, just there are now. Perhaps they're even more serious now. But, yeah, we had threats of nuclear war and, the Berlin Wall coming down, what's going to happen. Anyway, long story short, I just wanted to set the framework for I had a big spiritual awakening in my early 20s. Whenever you have your spiritual awakenings, they happen more than once, you're tuning into the love of the universe. You're getting some sense of that there is hope, there are amazing things are possible. And I just had this amazing awakening while working on an impossible work problem that was really breaking me down. I was feeling like a total failure because I really couldn't solve this. Turns out it couldn't be solved. They put me on a problem because, he's a hotshot out of MIT. Give him the impossible problem that nobody else could do. I couldn't do it either. But I prayed for guidance, and I wanted an answer to the problem in front of me. So this is an example of being a limited human being. I want to be happy. I want to have a good life. It all seems to come down to, like, right here, right now, if I just solve this software problem, I will collect my paycheck, I will have my friends, I will have a good life. Well, and so I'm praying for the answer. Well, I got the answer all right. I tapped into this greater universe. Oh my God, the universe is alive and it loves us and it has all the solutions we need. This tremendous sense of love. Just like, oh my God, we are so loved. I was crying, I was hugging strangers, I was talking like some born again who's saying like, God loves us, God is real, we can make this world so good, it's because I tapped into that love that near-death experiencers talk about, that you feel in your greatest moments of flow. You may or may not stay focused on the present situation. Like I said, if a lot of people have amazing energy experiences in their first kiss, or they're seeing their newborn child, or being on a great vacation and seeing a beautiful place, or a wonderful relationship, or a new job, or whatever. When those hopes and dreams come together, what's happening is what you really love is the love of the universe. And then you're going to see how far it carries you through the current situation. So don't become attached to the current situation. This has got to work out. I was feeling really good, really excited, had all these hopes and dreams, like, oh my God, this person, we're gonna have beautiful babies together, or this job, I'm gonna be so successful for the rest of my life, or so on and so on. This world is so amazing. We're going to have a lawful society, and people are all going to become convinced. Let's work with science and with reality, and let's make the world a better place. And all these visions and hopes and dreams. We'll see how far you get, but you don't have to feel betrayed when the reality stops working the way you wanted it to work. What you wanted was that background love of the universe, the unconditional love of the universe. And to be clear, the unconditional love of the universe is unconditional. What it means is the source of all life knows that you are a beautiful creator being. You are a form of the entire universe. So the source trusts and believes you. If you want to experience something, you will get a life lesson out of that. So the source will support people to stage any reality they want, any lifestyle they want. So a lot of people are doing that. They are still in the process of being loved by the universe, supported for whatever reality they want to try. And then they have to find out how far that reality works. How much is that a consistent, loving system with the positive beliefs that say all things can fit together in some way? Or how much is it a negative reality where they're going down the road of getting rid of the bad guys, getting rid of the things that don't belong? And if you go down the path of invalidating something doesn't belong, something's not right, I got to get rid of it, you will end up with that energy coming back at you. You will feel that you have enemies who are saying you don't belong, that you are invalid. And this is the great challenge that people are facing today. People react to it in different ways, but the fundamental negative belief, which is the opposite of the unconditional love that will support you in any reality, because the source knows that sooner or later you will choose love. So a lot of people in the world what's happening is they're still in the middle of building their negative reality for a positive lesson of realizing like, oh, this doesn't work. I don't like it. I need to choose more love. And then the universe will come in with the lessons of how to create a sustainable, loving, healthy reality. But yeah, a lot of people are in the middle of creating their negative reality. They have false beliefs that, oh, this is going to work. We're going to have World War, and then we'll get rid of all the bad people, and then Jesus will come back, and God will be happy that we killed everybody. And like, it doesn't make any sense. If they thought about it, if they felt about it, they wouldn't choose that direction. But a lot of people have turned off their feelings. You have your feelings turned on. That's why you're here. That's why we are the spiritual community that believe in love. So we're not going to go too far down the path of domination, but it's still domination. If you think everybody needs to be agreeing with peace, lots of people, they're like I said, they're in the middle of still setting up their horror movie. They're still setting up their negative situation, and then they will be able to step back and evaluate, do I really like this? This is the real me. And the answer will be no. The real me of everyone is a higher being who chooses love in the ultimate multiverse where all time and space are simultaneous. So that you have a higher self. Everyone has a higher self. The worst people in the world, worst acting people who have dehumanized themselves, you have to dehumanize yourself first in order to then dehumanize other people. If you see people who are being, dictators, narcissists, money grabbing, power grabbing, whatever, you think like, oh, they're greedy, they're selfish, they're just getting a good life for themselves. No, they have already closed off having a good life truly. They've already shut down their feelings. If they felt, they would feel like, I don't like this. I want a world where, people are happy and thriving. Anybody who's being a little monster, they're still setting up their negative lesson, their negative situation for a positive lesson to realize that's not me. One way to think about it, this came to me this week, was really good, was like, how can I accept people who are building really negative realities, really pursuing horrible things, and intellectually, spiritually, theologically, I understand someday, sooner or later, everybody chooses love. But in the meantime, how can I deal with this? What kind of person does these horrible things? And I realized, look, the source's perspective, the source is going to unconditionally love and support whatever reality you want, because realities aren't real. Realities are just a question. Am I this? Set up a really horrible situation, like a horrific movie, staged it, you get actors. The universe will provide actors for whatever scene you want to create. People who believe like you believe, who want to play the same kind of scene in different roles, your horror movie will get made if you want to make a horror movie. But to the source, it's all a question. You're just asking yourself as a consciousness, am I this? Well, there are no wrong questions, right? There are wrong answers, but in terms of that's not a loving, sustainable answer to this question. But realities are questions. Am I this? The reality isn't really real. It's not what you have, it's what you do with it. It's what you conclude from it. It's what kind of person you become based on your life experience. You see a lot of people, same or similar life experience, some of them go deeper into the negative and create awful, conflicting, attack other people because they feel attacked. Other people, they become loving. It's why? Because they choose, I'm not going to be like that, the way the people who mistreated me. I'm going to choose a different direction. That's what my parents did. My father he grew up during World War II, saw people dying, just horrible stuff, and left as soon as he could. He came in his early 20s to the United States, met my mother, whose father was just an absolute horrific, violent monster, just really damaged everyone in the family. And my mother needed to get away from that, so she became a school teacher, kind of drawn to healing children from all the childhood abuse she had and her siblings had. So my mother's a second grade school teacher, and my father is a kind of refugee from Nazi Germany. They bond. We're going to make a better life for our children. So this is the point of the human path, is that you have set up a question. And you have set up a reality that's asking you, is this really you? And the source will support that because it loves you. It knows that sooner or later you will become the higher being who chooses love and understands love. You have to understand what kind of rules of the universe are there. And we'll talk about this. There are actually only 5 basic rules to life. And they are quite abstract. You can create any kind of reality, any kind of life system, any kind of biochemistry, any kind of social order, and it will be sustainable and loving and feel good and keep growing as long as you adhere to those 5 rules. If you don't adhere to the 5 rules, fine. The source supports that too. You're just asking yourself, does this work? How do I feel about this? So let me get back to the idea of Lucifer, the fallen angel, what it means to go down the path of negativity. And this is not to condemn anyone in the world who is very much being like, the Antichrist. I mean, there are people in the world who are playing out the role of the Antichrist, but nobody's really the Antichrist. It's all asking yourself, am I this? And then you will answer when you're ready. Everybody will answer when they're ready. No, I'm not this. I don't believe in this. And this is just as an aside, it's very important to have a sense of how will the world change? How will the world quickly get better? Because yes, we are on the brink, and there are people who are still really busy setting up their negative lessons. So there are people who will go as far as they want to destroy the world in World War III. You don't want that. You've learned basic lessons. I don't need to learn the basic lesson of the Holocaust that we should love and support diversity and harmony. We should not try to extinguish, get rid of people that we don't agree with. That's a basic lesson. See, everything happens for a reason, but it doesn't have to be a really good, deep reason. It could be a really simple lesson of life. So yeah, I don't need to go through World War III. I don't need to go through a Holocaust. I don't need to go through horrors to learn the basic lesson of, yeah, I think love is the answer. I don't like horror realities. I want to choose love. Well, you will get opportunities. There is a multiverse. I will explain more as we go along in this talk how the multiverse really works so that your logical mind can make more of the choice. You have to have a sense of the logic of things. It doesn't have to be a physically based logic. It doesn't have to be a scientifically based logic. It's more of an emotional logic. It's an energetic logic, a spiritual logic. This needs to make sense. And ultimately, your reason for everything to happen is just the love. Something miraculous, something that breaks normal time-space rules happen. How can that have happened? Oh, because it increased love. Somebody needed it to have a good life. Oh, okay, that makes sense. It's for love. Anything's possible for love. You'll see when we talk about the 5 fundamental laws or rules of the universe, they support love, and anything can happen. Miraculous, amazing, temporary changes. I mean, we've learned quantum physics talks about miraculous, amazing things can happen. It's just that they usually don't happen. So how do you get in a position where miracles will happen? Choose more of the love. My reason for everything happening is love. How can there be people who stage horrific realities? It's the love of a source that knows realities are not that real. It's what you do with them. Realities are questions that you're posing to yourself. Am I this horrible person in this horrible world? No, I'm not. Sooner or later, everyone will have a spiritual awakening. So this is one of the ways I'm saying it's nice to have some ideas of how could the world be saved. Spiritual awakenings. When you no longer have the need for there to be bad guys in the world, for there to be narcissistic monsters and dictators, when you really understand how the universe works, and you understand anybody who's being a narcissist dictator, they're still just setting up their negative situation to then realize that that's not them. When you let go of people with compassion and just wish everyone well, I can love everyone from the right distance. That's what my soul likes to say. Because when I was younger, I was in that negative direction, but with good intentions of I just want to save the world. I just want to help everyone feel and see what I felt and saw when I had my spiritual awakening in my early 20s and tapped into a living, loving universe, and more awakenings after that. You will continue to have spiritual experiences and peak experiences in your life when you're on the right track. If you're in a situation where it's well, I had that one peak experience, but it's been awful ever since then, and I had such a good time with that person. Why the hell did they leave me? You become blameful and vengeful and paranoid and betrayed and all this stuff, it's like, well, that's a sign that you're off the positive path. You're setting up a negative situation to realize that's not you. But if you stay on the positive path, your peak experiences will keep growing, keep building. Connect the dots. My life has become very much a whole like personal mythology and mental inventory of all the best memories, of all the best life lessons, and they're real. They continue to exist. Like my childhood experiences, my adolescent experiences, the really good ones, they're there. And the bad ones are just times when I have to learn another step of healing to release what doesn't work for me. So my point is massive, just a spreading wave of spiritual awakenings. That can happen. It just, you need to let go of the idea of like, people are wrong, I got to convince them. That's what keeps you locked in with people who are also have their own ideas of you're wrong, we got to do it my way. No, you're wrong, we got to do it my way. People can't have their own spiritual awakenings in that environment. The more you can, like, I can love everyone from the right distance. I have compassion for all you folks. I understand how the universe really works. I understand that the source unconditionally loves you so much. It feels so good when you tap into the love of the source that it will allow you to set up negative realities for the eventual positive lesson of realizing that's not who you are. There could be a wave of spiritual awakenings. Other ways that the universe, that the earth will be saved, ETs. Definitely, there are really ETs. You know, you watched the Steven Spielberg movie Disclosure recently. A lot of people think, well, that's just dumb sci-fi. That's not a very good story. It's not a great story because it's actually just truth. It's like, yes, there have been a lot of cover-ups, but the cover-ups of ETs, that's by the people who cover up the truth. Like, those are people who are paranoid anyway. We're getting to a point where you realize, I have my own relationship with the ETs. I have my own relationship with angels. I have my own relationships with nature spirits and how good life is on earth. I have my own relationship with ancestors and spirit guides and my own other lifetimes and my own higher self. Focus on your own relationship. Let go of like, oh, other people have controlled me and stopped me and I'm stuck on a betrayal and my life stopped working because that person didn't want to do what I wanted them to do with me. No, that's the negative direction. Control, people are wrong, they need to change to my way or the highway. That's the whole negative direction. Let go of that. Focus on what works for you and learn how that is. This comes from a living, loving universe that will show you the way home to a paradise for you, where all the other people who have learned their lessons are there too. People who are you do want, as a human, you do want happiness, you do want pleasure, you do want like-minded friends, but how to get there, that's the question. The human being doesn't know how to get to a better world. It just knows that it wants a better world. When human beings from that good intention, everybody's deep down good inside. That's a wonderful belief right there. That's because everyone does want a good life in a good universe. That's just that how to get there, people adopt these false beliefs, think that they have to control, get rid of the bad guys, all that stuff. Well, try that as long as you want until you have an awakening and realize like this isn't working. So there are many ways, even just scientifically, over and over, many ways the earth can be saved. Nature is shown repeatedly in different kinds of, experiments, people buying some land, thinking like we can help this land, restore this land. If you work with nature, very rapidly it can come back. Oh, a little interesting aside. I want to say this one. I forget the detail. Basically, in Australia, there's this kind of really thorny weed that takes over. Farmers thought like we've got to extinguish this weed. People were like in a continual battle with this thorny weed. I forget what the name was, but and then one scientist figured out actually, if you let that weed grow, it's part of a natural cycle. That weed actually, yes, it overtakes the place, but then it chokes itself off. It actually reaches a point of, it actually has a role in fertilizing the ground with its own way of growing, and eventually it dies and it creates the space for other species to come in. So this one scientist, he said, instead of continually battling this thorny weed, this bush, this thing that takes over, what happens if we set aside a preserve and just let it grow, see what happens? is incredible. In like 5-10 years, this weed went through its entire life cycle and then seeded the area to other species. Birds came in, trees grew, and it became fertile land for the kind of crops that were appropriate to grow there. No, it wasn't good for farmers to come in and say, I got to get rid of all this weed, got to make this, completely controlled, perfect farmland to grow this one cash crop that isn't even indigenous, but it's the one that people are going to pay me the most for. See, that's an example of people not working with nature. But yeah, if you work with nature, it bounces back very quickly. So there are all these ways to be very hopeful in the world today. So I wanted to wrap up some idea of like this, I mentioned in the beginning, this idea of Lucifer. What you're looking out for is the controlling monster personality that can rise in you. And the Bible has a story of Lucifer as a fallen angel. So the idea of someone who did work with God, but then became dominating, insecure, and for some reason wanted to be God. So what did God do when Lucifer wanted to be its own God, run everything? God created hell, created the special place for Lucifer to rule. And yeah, Lucifer then became like really cruel and needed people to then take abuse, because Lucifer didn't just want to take its own abuse. So then a third of the angels, according to the Bible story, went to be with Lucifer in hell, in this hellish reality. Not at all how heaven works, but the source supported it. God is like, fine, whatever you want, we'll create a place for you. And people will come, and you'll get players, you'll get actors that play this horrific movie for you. So that's what life is like. You get to stage anything you want. You will meet people who agree with you. You will meet people who go along with you. You will meet situations where the kind of conflicts you were expecting are happening. Anything can be staged. You need to step back on a regular cycle, not just once when you die. The afterlife review. People die, they go to the afterlife and like, oh, that's what I was doing wrong. Oh, can I get another chance? Can I get another lifetime? Sure, the source says, get another lifetime. They reincarnate. They make all the same mistakes again. It's because the worlds have become segregated. We need to ascend. The idea of ascension is to learn the lessons of how the universe really works while in a human body. We don't want to just like serve God, serve some belief system, and expect to be rewarded in the afterlife. You can experience that, but eventually in the afterlife you realize like, oh, my being is split. My spiritual self and my human self, they belong together. You want heaven on earth. And that is what I love to teach. I love to learn how the universe really works. So the idea of Lucifer, you can go with the negative beliefs, and you can basically like kill off God. A lot of people, there's no God. Even the humanists. I know some really nice humanists who want to have a better world, but when it comes down to it, there's no God. Religion is duping people because they had bad experiences with religion, right? But that doesn't mean just because they're like judgmental, hurtful religions, that doesn't invalidate the source and God and goddess and great spirit and creator, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I know some really nice humanists who, this one guy, it's like, I just feel very tense around him. It's like, he's always trying to like dominate he's trying to pose questions, trying to make people think. He's got some idea of how to wake people up. So I finally got into a long conversation with him, and I realized like, he doesn't believe the universe is a good place. I believe it's a living, loving universe that's fantastic, amazing, and just wants to teach us how to live with it. He believes that the universe is a chaotic, dangerous, awful place, and the answer is to learn meditation. He's so into meditation. If you just learn to meditate, you'll calm down, you won't be so reactive, you can build a nice society. So yeah, he has visions of a nice society, but how to get there, he's killed off God. The universe is a horrible place. Take his meditation course, you will calm down, you will learn how to make a good society, build a good society. And the consequence is, he doesn't really work with the universe. He's always locked in battles, arguments. I had to let him go. I had to realize like the battling, arguing part of me came up. I was like, I've got to convince you, man, you're a good person, but you don't think that the universe is alive and it loves you. I got to convince you. And then I started realizing like, which would I rather have? Do I want to argue with this person to get him to see things my way so we can start to have fun together? Or maybe I just want to let him go and just go have fun with the universe. and let the universe bring people who agree with me, like we're already on the same page, we can have fun. That's what you want to have a sense of. You get into these conflicts, you realize, like, what do I want? I want to change this person, change this situation, fight for it, or just leave it, let it go, let the source take care of it in its own place. These people are learning their own lessons, setting up their own reality. I just want to go right now and feel good. I mean, this is what Abraham Hicks talks about and other channeled entities. You want to choose the path that feels good right away and continues to grow in feeling good. The negative path is the path that doesn't feel good, but it's cheerleading you. It's saying, like, just do the hard work, fight the battle. It'll be worth it. You'll get to a good place through a hard path. No, the universe has an easy, fun path. That's Bashar talks about this. Channel entity is like the formula, he calls it. How to know what to do in life? Choose what calls you as your greatest joy, your passion. Where are you called? And it may not be, you want to watch out for escapism, right? You don't want to be like, well, I don't want to be at work. My inner child wants to play. Let me run outside and quit my job. No, you want to have, what's the best way to enjoy the situation that I know I need to go through this? You know, I may not stay in this job, but I'm not going to quit this second just because it's a sunny day and I want to play with my inner child outside. So but the universe will show you how to make the best of every situation. So just that Lucifer story and God giving Lucifer his own hell to rule and all these people that follow that hell so that there's an entire reality is created, just an entire like sadistic, hell-bent society. That's not fiction. Okay, that is what actually happens. You know, religion is just early psychology. The devil is the narcissist. You know, all these things. Psychology then has its way of describing it. Neurosciences have their way of describing brain dysfunctions, whatever. Spirituality has its way of describing all the dysfunctions in relation to a living, loving universe that has basic rules for you to have a good life. But yeah, there's a certain guy who was a New York City real estate developer who has become a president, who is a dictator. You know, he's heartless, he's mean, he's dehumanized himself so he can dehumanize others. And just in his early autobiography, and before he learned to stop saying this kind of stuff because it was disturbing to most people, he admitted that he decided as a young man, complete nihilism. There is no point to life, there is no God, there is no afterlife. There's just oblivion. We're just here to do whatever the heck we want. People don't matter. Life doesn't matter. There's nothing to live for, no principles. Just do whatever you want, and then you'll die, and then there's oblivion. So he decided that, given his own childhood abuse with a narcissistic father. And then he realized, like, well, wait a minute, now I have nothing to live for. So then he decided he set his own rules, just like a Lucifer. His rule then became, I'm going to make life a game in which I'm going to get the most money, the most power, the most followers of anyone. I want to die the king of the world. I want to die the one who wins. So the winner, to win just means that you're the one who had the most power. If the world has to end, and he already believed the world will end, then he's going to be the one who makes it end. That's an actual Antichrist, hellish Lucifer figure. He's now president of the United States. So I don't want to like focus on invalidating him. I'm just saying that is the kind of life lesson he set up. He set up such a negative reality is straight out of the revelation in the Bible. And yeah, he's got all these followers who love revelation in the Bible. They're like, yeah, we're going to get rid of all the bad guys and Jesus will come back. And like, they don't realize how much they've actually played out the Lucifer character who wants to be God. So watch out for the times that your own negativity is negating the positive, saying like, no, the wonderful vision can't possibly be true. God has abandoned me. Life has abandoned me. Life doesn't work. That's the negative direction. You don't want to become a person who has killed off God, nihilism, just deep in your own hostility. That's the end game of the Lucifers. They just become a heartless, hostile person who has to be in charge of destroying everything. And that is the negative ego. We each have our own negative ego, and I'll talk a little bit about this in the main talk, but I want to conclude now. I've actually gone on quite a bit of an introduction here. But We'll talk about the spiritual human partnership that gets rid of the negativity, and then we'll talk about the 5 basic laws of the universe so you can build your own reality that consistently works with a living, loving universe. Okay, that's my introduction.